Welcome to another edition of the InnerFight podcast. My name is Michael Smith, founder of InnerFight.com. I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by an old friend and also massive fitness inspiration to many today in the show, John Britton, and also our coach here, Phil Hesketh. No matter where you are in the world, thanks for tuning in. Let's jump right in. Here we go then. I want to welcome a special guest to the show. This is an additional show by your demand. He's going to answer our questions instead of us answering your questions. I'm joined, as I am often, by our other coach, Phil Hesketh, because I think he's got some questions for today's guest. John Britton, welcome to the show.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Hey, Phil, you're laughing already. I mean,
He's got a great voice.
Are you excited to hear what John's got to say?
Yeah, he's a really good storyteller. So,
John, I think, we'll make this easy because I don't want to screw it up. Why don't you introduce yourself, give us a little bit of a background, and let's roll from there.
All right. I am.
Here we go.
I am currently a full-time CrossFit coach over at CrossFit Metalize, and I have a background started with American football. That's where I really learned how to lift weights.
Canadian football, right?
Well, played in Canada, but American football. Did that through university. And then right after university, moved out to Asia, South Korea, and met some dude from California who was wearing these stupid shoes, the Vibram 5 Fingers. And
good start.
I asked him what he was doing. He said, I'm going to run up a mountain and do some pull-ups, push-ups, and squats. And he said, it's CrossFit. And I said, you're an idiot. But, he sent me a video of some people doing Fran, fell in love with it, did it the next day, and did it for about 5 years after that.
Did Fran every day for the next 5 years.
Fran every day.
That was the first time you did CrossFit when you moved to Asia. You hadn't done it.
I'd never done it before. I did it apparently once with the rugby team back at school, but I didn't know what CrossFit was.
Right.
What year was it when you moved to Asia?
That was 2010.
And we met the first time in 2012.
At the regionals.
Regionals. After you placed 29th in the Open, you made it to regionals and you came 9th.
That is correct.
Hey, you really, that was 2 places behind me. Sorry.
Yes, I do. I am aware of that.
In 2012.
In 2012.
Did you compete in 2011 as well?
No.
I did compete in the Open, but I did not make the trip to Japan for regionals.
So, mate, you've moved over to Asia, funny place, and you got involved in this thing called CrossFit, and you've been to regionals a few times. I was actually trying to find some information on your performance post 2012, and the internet didn't give me much information. So, can you fill us in? There's a bit of a time lapse there between 2012 and 2015. What have you been doing
since then?
I know what you did in 2015. I'm going to come to that later.
Yeah, 2012 was the first year. 2013. Qualified as an individual, but went team that year with Reebok Cross Sentinel.
Ah, that's why I couldn't find you.
And what Reebok said to us and these other 5 people who qualified as individuals, they said, you guys make it to the games with Korean athletes, we'll give you $50,000. So we said, let's do it.
So you've always been chasing money.
And we came 3rd that year. So.
Oh, really?
When there was only allowed one.
Only one team to go from Asia that year.
Wow, that's mate, that's pretty impressive that you were competing with Koreans. I think I remember that year.
Out of the 6, 3 were Korean.
Yeah.
You were an individual that year.
I was an individual that year.
You had not met yet Phil Hesketh.
No.
I think I had.
Yeah.
I had.
We'd met.
We'd met,
but I wasn't working.
We'd started. It had begun. But mate, really, what I really want to jump into, mate, and what's more interesting. Obviously, you competed as in CrossFit for a couple of years. 2014, you went back as a individual.
Yes.
Won the hang snatch.
Yep.
That was cool.
And then so first event.
Did you actually complete any of the other events?
First event came first place, and then things went slightly downhill from there for the rest of the weekend. Which
I overtook you.
Yep, Phil ended up overtaking me that weekend.
Right. For the first and only time since he stayed ahead. Yeah. Anyway, that's a different subject. But then in 2015, you also went to regionals with a team.
With a team, CrossFit Metalize here in Dubai.
Oh yeah.
And then, mate, he's a veteran, really.
Yeah.
He's definitely, for someone so young, he's done a lot. But what I want to hop straight into is at the end of, it was always your goal after the 2015 regionals to kind of take a complete U-turn on something you've been doing for quite a few years, CrossFit, but take one element of that, which, having won the hang snatch at the start of the 2014 regionals, you're obviously quite good at, and focus 100% on weightlifting. So talk us through sort of initially how that came around and why you made that decision.
All right. Well, as you guys know, when we did a CrossFit session for a lot of years, the part I would love is the weightlifting portion of it, whatever it might be, snatches, cleans, jerks. And, the part that I didn't love was the conditioning piece or gymnastics, or whatever it might be, especially when it involved anything
really tired.
Anything over about 4 or 5 minutes, I mean.
Yeah. Anyway.
With last year's Open, I didn't do as well as I thought I would do. I didn't expect to be one of the top 10 to go as an individual, but I really didn't do very well, except on the clean jerk portion where I was second to a weightlifter who had basically 0 rounds on the first part.
Is that sorry, mate, just to jump in there, do you think you didn't do well because you just spend more time doing what you enjoyed doing?
Part of it, yes.
Yeah.
And part of it, I mean, maybe I probably should have spent more time running and rowing and doing the stuff I really didn't want to do, like thousands of wall balls. But, I definitely spent more time weightlifting than even the rest of the CrossFitters that were
Do you think that's a problem generally within, sort of, if we call it the sport of CrossFit, people spend a lot of time doing stuff that they really like, and then they're in a similar situation as perhaps you were last year, where you're really good at something, but the other stuff you're just terrible at.
Well, absolutely. I mean, that's why the best guys, they understand balance and the fact they need to smash their weaknesses on a daily basis, where they're going to be successful, and the other ones that just do what they like, they are not going to be successful.
Yeah.
That's
so
just reality.
That was you. You're in that situation. You did super good in the Open, in part of the workout.
In part of the workout, and other parts not so well.
And what happened from there?
It's not like, I was, I think, 60th place or something like that, and, stuck there.
Yeah,
and
so just decent.
Decent, not terrible.
Hey, you weren't terrible by any means, right?
Right. But, so it kind of came down to the choice of, well, do I want to really try and be a competitive CrossFitter, or do I want to go the other way and, now put all my time and effort into weightlifting and see what I can do with it.
Right.
So,
but, at that stage, mate, CrossFit had really become your life. You'd moved to Asia. You'd competed for a number of years. I mean, you even went so far as to have your Instagram name John Boy CF.
Well, yeah.
I mean, you're pretty deep in it.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, and I still coach CrossFit to this day full time. But, CrossFit's what I love, and it was awesome, and no issues with that at all.
So tell us what it was like, sort of, you made a conscious decision after regionals. You sort of said, that's it, I'm not really going to do CrossFit. You went out and you hired a weightlifting coach.
That is correct, yeah.
Talk us through that.
What actually is, when you say weightlifting, because this might confuse a few people, like, they think that, especially if you've been doing CrossFit, like, what actually is weightlifting?
So Olympic weightlifting, the sport, 3 attempts at a snatch, 3 attempts at a clean jerk in a competition.
Yep, that's the whole competition. You
That's
get 3 goes.
3 goes on
your
each
heaviest lift on each one counts.
That's exactly it.
Right. And did you, from the start, did you favor one or the other, or?
You're saying the snatch or the clean jerk?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. I understand they are both equally as important.
Right.
And, they're 2 very, very different movements, but both equally as important. So
you hired a coach after regionals was in May.
Yep.
You hire a coach. How did you go about that? Because I think there's some people that maybe do want to specialize. A lot of our listeners obviously do CrossFit, but some people are better at some stuff than the other. So how did you go about sort of getting a coach?
I looked into a couple people online, but a friend, Kristen Johnson, Abu Dhabi, she had a coach she was just starting weightlifting with,
right,
who was based in Florida. And the problem is I talked to a couple Russian guys, and their replies to me were broken English, and I said, if I'm communicating with someone online, I need to be able to hear or understand what they're talking about.
Absolutely.
That sort of thing. So
I was quite surprised you didn't call me.
It almost happened.
It didn't. No, that makes me feel a lot better. So you found this guy.
I found this guy, Tyrone Harvey, in Florida, and he'd sent a couple people to World Championships, one athlete to the Olympics. And
wow.
Very successful coach.
Yep.
And so I said, hey, let's do this. Let's make me a weightlifter.
Right.
I have this experience, and what do we got to do? So.
And so you said, okay, we start on Monday, and he obviously got some information off you, blah, blah, blah. The first program comes through, and you look at it, what's going through your mind?
Squats. Squats on squats on squats. He had me for the first 5 weeks squatting 3 to 7 sessions a week.
Wow.
And that, my legs hurt for those first 3-4 weeks incredibly bad.
Well, that was the thing, though, when we used to train together, like, you actually had quite a low squat to say how well you could snatch and clean and jerk, right? It was surprisingly low, your front and back squat, which, you know, for most weightlifters, that's the main thing to strength work. Squatting, would you agree? And
totally. I mean, at one point I had a 164 clean and a 175 front squat.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, and so, you know, he looked at my squat numbers and he said, really, until you're front squatting about 210, 220, we can't really do a whole lot with you. So that's what's happening.
So you'd squat up to 7 times a week, sometimes multiple squat sessions per day.
Yeah.
What's and I think one of our listeners actually asked this question, and I'm quite intrigued to know as well. What was the balance between a back squat and front squat?
50-50.
Right.
I would say it was right around 50-50. You know, the way he broke it down to me and the way that now I break it down is the front squat is more for the clean.
Right.
You need to catch that clean, stand up with it, and then be able to create the power to jerk it.
Yeah.
The back squat is really, essentially, when you pull a snatch off the ground, it's a back squat.
Right.
You're coming up the same way, and you need both equally all the time.
So the first part of the program is heavy laden on squats. You can't walk. You're in hell.
Well, but that's the thing is like heavy on squats, but heavy on snatches and cleans and jerks and everything. I mean,
what would a typical day like? If you give me like one session that you would do,
one session.
That's it.
Typically,
there we go.
I'll get that mic up to the mouth.
That works.
One session would usually start with you might do some snatches, either off the blocks, you know, probably about 8 to 10 sets. And then you would either do clean and jerks, or maybe push presses, something along those lines. Then pulls, then your squats.
Yeah.
Wow.
So for a lot of people that think like, I think the initial thought a lot of the time is that weightlifting training would be almost easier because CrossFit you have to do all this, but like I've seen you train, and you know I'm not naive enough to think that it is easier. Like I've seen you absolutely just destroyed at the end of like one of your squat sessions or something.
Totally. The difference was, you know, where weightlifting with CrossFit, you would do it for the first little bit, and 30, 45 minutes, you're done. Maybe an hour. Where now it's getting to 2 hours, 2.5 hours, and you're still expected to be going at 85, 90%.
Yeah.
And the effort you have to put in at that point was destroying me.
How would you, like, you know, people are thinking, okay, yeah, it's hard, you're doing a lot of sessions. How would you compare the fatigue feeling, just outright tiredness on your body and on your lungs, CrossFit compared to like you just said, you're expected to lift at 85% 2 hours into a session. In CrossFit, we never really, I mean, we sort of get worse as the time goes on. So how would you compare that or describe it?
It's really tough to compare because, you know, when you look at something like, say you are rowing 2 kilometers or something like that, it's just a totally different burn to when you're squatting heavy after a long session. It's really tough to compare that. It's just either one, you're putting out effort. Right. You're putting out effort. It's just one is burning on the legs, and it's only going to burn for a couple of seconds. It's over. Where the other one is the lungs and the body and everything else. So it's just a very different workout, very different experience.
And it's you said, I want to go back, you said seven sessions could be squats. So give us an idea of how much time you're putting into this thing, like right out the blocks.
Yeah, you know what, and that's the other thing that just surprised me with this, with Coach Tyrone at that point. I think I was working out longer per day with weightlifting than I was with CrossFit. And the thing is, you know, if I decided to do my session an hour and a half, I probably could.
Yeah.
But I would not rest very long between sets, and I would probably be less successful with my lifts. So the sessions end up taking upwards of 2 hours, and it was exhausting. Do
you think that like your background in CrossFit, because obviously you are fit, like you got like a lot fitter doing CrossFit? Do you think that's helped, like when you get to weightlifting? Because I know like typically a lot of guys like weightlifters, you would see them, they would do a lift and then maybe they wouldn't lift again for 3 or 4 minutes. So they'd be sat down on their chair just exhausted.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, whereas you've got that fitness just to kind of keep going and get a lot more volume done in a day.
And, when he started me, he said, okay, you've gone to regionals, you're a high-level CrossFit athlete, the volume won't kill you. And so that's why he started me at basically 100%, where with a beginner weightlifter, he would have to really dial things back and, not make sure they don't break themselves. So,
mate, when people generally sort of, like you're within a bunch of guys that did CrossFit and had a lot of fun doing it. I think when people generally sort of step outside of that, obviously they're your friends and they're the people you hang out with, you spend a lot of time with. Did you feel quite sort of lonely and like, I'm doing this thing on my own, but I'm doing it for the right reasons and stuff? How did that sort of, because it must be, there must be some emotions there as well. Like,
oh, totally. I mean, the part that I miss is just having the group of guys and you put a workout up on the board and you say we're going to do it, and you start at the same time, and you suffer through it together. Where basically almost every session I'm on my own now, and I don't have an issue with that. But my biggest thing is as long as there's other people in the gym with me. So right now it's usually Justin and Taylor, and as long as they're with me training, I'm cool.
Right.
When it's me totally on my own, then it gets a little bit boring. And,
yeah. So more about the environment. You want to stay in an environment where there's people just doing cool stuff.
Exactly. And as of late, I've started getting together with other weightlifters who are kind of.
Did you
like
get
me.
a lot of sort of people that sort of doubted that you'd do it, doubted that you'd continue with it, maybe because of that, or did you feel that there was a bit of resistance at the start?
Actually, no.
Right.
For everyone that really knew me, they kind of saw this as a logical step, and
this is the right thing to do for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
What if you'd have said you were going to go into like
the only
endurance running?
The only thing, the resistance I got was actually from Metalized members who, they look at me like, you don't do CrossFit anymore. Why? You tell me to do CrossFit. And I say, well, I did for 5 years at a level, and I'm just changing my focus. It's not like I don't love CrossFit
That's probably quite interesting, because a lot of the members, they look at you like it's like, oh, why are you making us do this?
Yeah.
It's as if something that's like we haven't done ourselves.
Yeah.
When you give them a really hard workout. So that's probably something you get quite a lot now. Like, oh, you don't, you're telling them like, oh, these 500-meter intervals are going to be really hard, and they look and say, well, you're just a weightlifter or something, something naive and stupid like that.
Not anymore. And one thing I've been doing lately is just jumped into CrossFit class and hanging out with them, that sort of thing.
Is your coach okay with that? Or you just don't report back?
Well, he's in Colorado, so he won't figure that out. But
or do you just remind the members how you just were 9th in 2012? And,
but that's the other things I say, like, hey guys, I've done this for years and years.
Yeah.
And I think they now understand that.
So. Do you feel, speaking about coaching CrossFit and stuff, do you feel by your experience that you're able to sort of break down weightlifting for people in a lot better way, even though, I mean, the point is really here, you've just taken a program online. You haven't had a coach coming with you.
No, exactly.
From what I've seen, you are technically good anyway. But do you feel that this whole experience has helped you a lot in coaching weightlifting?
I'm actually going to say no, except for my programming.
Right.
Now, I understand weightlifting programming a lot better.
Yeah.
But I won't say coaching. I can't really say. The only thing since I've started, I've done the CrossFit weightlifting course, which actually had a couple really good tips in there.
Yeah.
And then I've had some weightlifters around who have shown me some stuff, which has been awesome. So,
talking about,
I was saying about programming, because I think that's quite interesting when we talk about weightlifting. Like, whenever I've seen your program up on the board, it's always like really specific, like 112 kilos for this amount of reps, and then 114 kilos for this amount of reps. Whereas, sort of in CrossFit, where sometimes we'll come in, it's just like my snatch session would be build to a heavy single. And I kind of have a number in mind, I'd just hit it and then move on, whereas yours is a lot more, it's specific. And how do you sort of motivate yourself to, some days you come in and you just don't feel strong or you don't feel motivated, and you've got a number on the board that you have to hit.
No, absolutely. And that is kind of one of the things that I hate with this program is last Wednesday I had 4 snatches and 4 clean jerks at 92% each, so that was at 133 and 163, and I missed all 8.
Yeah.
And
Is that
just
it was
one of those days.
It was a terrible day, and I ended up actually increasing my percent on the snatch, and I missed 7 times before I hit it.
Right.
Just because I said I'm not going to walk away and not hit this.
Yeah.
And it's tough. It makes it really tough. At the same time, what I'm hoping is when I eventually do get on the platform to compete, even if it's not a good day, you have that training, that experience to hit those numbers you need to hit.
So what do you think, like, that day's ended, like, is it really, really demotivating, or like how do you then get yourself ready for the next one? Is it just like, okay, that session's gone, it was a bad day, I accept that, move on?
Absolutely. I've walked away from sessions thinking, why do I weightlift? I need to take up knitting, and this is the worst thing I've done in a while. But yeah, I mean, then that's the other thing is, you really break things down. I try to video as many things as possible, and you just realize that you're doing things wrong, and you can be better, and you know that. So,
talking about CrossFit, mate, and having come from CrossFit, what's your sort of opinion, having now experienced the more out-and-out weightlifting approach? What's your take on sort of the way that CrossFit uses weightlifting, tests weightlifting, trains weightlifting? Because now I guess your opinion is slightly different from what it was before.
I think CrossFit does a very good job of it, and they're starting more and more to get their own take on weightlifting.
Right.
When I say that, now we're seeing things like ladders, speed ladders, where it's heavy, it's heavier than it's ever been, and you got to do it fast.
Yeah.
So they're not doing things like a regular weightlifter would. Now they're testing their own way, and I think they're getting increasingly better and better and better at that. And the one cool thing that I think they can do that weightlifting doesn't is now they can say we're going to test a hang snatch, or they're going to test a hang clean push press, or something like that that really just makes a CrossFitter have to have a lot more skills and be good at sort of a different range instead of just a snatch and a clean jerk.
Because from what I've sort of seen, there's a lot of people in the weightlifting camp that look at CrossFit and what CrossFit does to weightlifting, and are just not happy to see that, and are not happy with all the positives that you just come out with, like why not a hang clean into a push press or something like that?
Well, if you went back 3-4 years ago, you could find those weightlifters that just hated CrossFit across the board. And you know what? You're not going to find it now.
Right.
Because, first of all, crossers that weightlift, they're really good now.
Right.
I think you're a great example as well of someone who's doing CrossFit and then just decided to, like, you probably wouldn't have got into weightlifting if you hadn't have initially found CrossFit first.
And, when you ask weightlifters, like, now they can get bars at any time. They can find all the plates, shoes, gear.
Yeah.
They can get PT clients.
They can get PT.
Like
absolutely.
Yeah, all these weightlifters now have, like, I know there's so many in the UK.
Yeah.
People just go to an actual weightlifter for PT to help them with their CrossFit.
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty big now.
And you obviously run a PT business as well as coach classes, John.
Yep.
Have you had an increase in the number of demands or clients that just now that you're
totally
obviously successful?
And now that's what I'm starting to look for more, is just people want to weightlift and not just, because I do have a couple still that just want to do fitness and be fit, which is fine. But now I'm getting a bunch of people who are saying, hey, I want to be a weightlifter. Let's only do that. And
you've got a young 16-year-old girl, right?
Yep, Miriam.
That's really cool.
She's just in a couple months has, gotten very good at weightlifting, and she's only getting better and better, so it's exciting.
So you've improved quite a lot. I'll jump to the numbers in a second, but what's really the big goal here? Are you going to, as you did in CrossFit, do you want to compete? Are there competitions? How does that all work out?
Well, I've been in contact with Canadian weightlifting, and it does not look like I'm going to be doing the national competition this year.
Right. Because
I'm not a resident of Canada at the moment.
Right.
Which you need to be.
Okay.
And now, due to my Instagram, they also know I'm in Dubai and not really much I can do about that. So,
is there local weightlifting competitions that you could potentially enter?
You know what? Since I've started, there's been, as far as I know, the one in Dubai that Rig did.
Right.
We just did one this past weekend, which did not include coaches. So far, there's been nothing in Dubai in the last 8-9 months.
So how do you...
Does the UAE it has a weightlifting team, right?
It does.
Yeah. Have you been in contact with them? Like, where do they compete?
Talk to them a little bit, but, so they'll go do the Arab Championships and, things like that, which I still couldn't do.
So they generally compete as a country?
Yeah, and I'm, to be honest, I'm not even 100% sure how they do it. But
how does that work? Like, when you're... Obviously, I know you want to get better and I know you want to hit the numbers, but... Previously, you've worked towards, for example, regionals or the Open. Like, how does your motivation come when you miss those 8 lifts? And actually, does it really matter because you don't have any competition coming?
No, and that's one of the toughest things I was telling my coach, and now we're both together looking for meets across the world.
Right.
And I said I'm almost at the point where I'm ready to travel back to the States if I have to, if I can possibly get into the Arnold or. There's a couple up in Europe, or if I have to go east to Asia or something like that, I'll go at this point. I'll travel just because I need to compete and,
Maybe we should just host a competition for him here.
There we go.
Yeah.
Just John and his friends, or John.
We won't invite anyone else so that
so that
guaranteed win.
And what if I miss all 6?
Yeah, then just
we'll just make it 7.
We'll podcast with you next year about your new sport.
we just won't video it. Mate, talking about the numbers, let's start in your squat numbers. What were they? Because I think this is the most remarkable thing and shows to people how much effort you've put in and how much progress you made. What were your squat numbers, sort of regionals or post-regionals in 2015?
They're actually, like, when I look back, they're good, but they're not crazy, the jumps I've had. But so back squat, just before regionals, maybe a month before, I back squatted 200 kilos. And now about a month ago, I back squatted 220. So it's a good
that's
jump.
Not bad.
It's a good jump.
That's not bad.
But
is that more or less than Phil Hesketh can back squat?
I believe that's the same.
No.
No?
221.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
Yes.
Well, the plan is hopefully 227. We'll see.
That's 500, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that's 485.
That's a big life goal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So...
okay, I need to do that as well.
Front squat?
Front squat has, I've seen it jump significantly. It's gone from 175 to 200.
Okay, I can't do that.
And that is simply because when I CrossFitted, I only back squatted, really. I didn't spend a whole lot of time front squatting. And now I am front squatting my face off, and so it was natural for it to go up.
Yeah. And then into the movements that you obviously get tested on, the snatch and the clean and jerk?
Snatch has gone from 136 to 145.
Wow.
And I really do believe there's more there for the next time I test. And clean jerk has gone from 162 to 173.
So those numbers that you had before, though, even the 136, 162, that would be enough to win almost any competition of when you're competing in CrossFit.
They were very good. They were very good numbers for CrossFitters. So
already you were way ahead of CrossFit in just the weightlifting numbers alone, though.
Yeah.
Wow.
So kind of a personal selfish goal that I kind of have by the end of the year is I want to be well ahead of all the CrossFitters and sort of, almost justify the fact that I've gone to weightlifting. And
how do those numbers that you're at now, how do they compare, like, if you were to, hypothetically speaking, be allowed to compete in Canada in the nationals? How do those numbers compare to what people are putting up?
This year, if I hit my best lift, or last year if I hit my best lifts there, I would have placed either third or second in my category.
Wow. And explain to people how the categories work, mate.
So there's a 105 plus, everyone over 105 kilograms.
Right.
A 105 to 94. My category was 94 to 85. Then
no way. Come on.
Then 85 to
105.
76. 85, 76?
I don't know.
77?
I think we should go back to this weight thing.
Yeah, that's where I was going next with this weight thing, because when I think of, I don't know about you, Phil, but when you think of, like, weightlifters, you think of these dudes with, like, I'm surprised some of them can actually snatch the barbell because they're quite big. Whereas, mate, well, you've got your shirt on, but obviously if you had it off, we'd be able to see that you're absolutely lean as anything, mate.
Only the really heavy guys, though, like the 105.
The
plus.
105. So yeah,
like you look at the guys from 85. The guys in the, is it 85 to 94?
85 to 94, or
right.
Even getting lower, the 77s, the 69s. I mean, they are jacked.
Yeah,
right.
Because they need to be as small as possible while still being.
And they actually do quite a lot. If you look at like things online, I've seen like a lot of the Chinese stuff. They do a lot of like just bodybuilding.
Their accessory work is crazy.
Yeah,
they do tons.
Right.
Loads of dips, loads of pull-ups.
Yep.
And then all that pure strength stuff that you do.
Totally.
What I want to just jump into a little bit of that, mate. Like, is your program specifically like we've pretty much gone over for the time we've been chatting, like squat, clean, jerk, front squat, and snatch, or is there a lot of accessory stuff in there?
There is after the workout. So
right.
And I won't say it's a crazy amount, but yeah, I mean presses, pull-ups. He programs strict pull-ups and ab work and that sort of thing, which
I've never seen you do.
which I promise I do. Although the problem that I have with it is it can just sometimes be neglected because you do a hour and a half, 2 hour session, and then you got to still do some accessory work that you almost go, oh wow, I can do that the next day.
Do you think you can get away with that because you've got you're in good shape anyway, you've got decent mobility, you've done a lot of CrossFit. Do you think you're in a more beneficial position, or?
Maybe, but I mean that's just the wrong way to think about it, because then I'm just going to eventually skip everything and just say, oh, I'm fit. Yeah. So I mean, and that's kind of one of the other reasons I do the CrossFit workouts, is to make sure that I still have, pull-ups and dips and muscle-ups and all that stuff, which is fun and also quite functional.
Mate, another massive component that I've noticed within your weightlifting is your wardrobe. It changed dramatically when you stopped doing CrossFit.
Got rid of all the shorts.
You got rid of all the shorts.
Shorts we're not helping the bar path, changing it significantly. And spandex made a whole lot of sense. And to be honest, I think I showed you this when I started weightlifting. I had these... I was basically getting a little gross on my thighs because I kept pulling the bar on my thighs so many times a week, and
all the hairs start to
ingrown hairs,
and so bad.
So then I started to have to find spandex that was longer, and then I said, well, these tights work pretty well. And since then I've stuck to them.
Those 3/4 ones are the best ones. I don't like it. I don't like it when you wear the full length.
I love the 3/4.
It looks silly, but the 3/4 are cool.
You also started wearing a shirt a lot more often.
Well, front rack and back rack, it helps the bar from sliding around.
How is your little squat scar on the back of your neck? Because that was getting quite reasonable as well.
It got worse once I got a new barbell with a center knurl. It just started ripping it apart. So, but I think
that's part of the equipment as well. You invested quite a bit in the you need a good barbell for it, right?
Need or wanted, because the ones we had, and the same you guys have, Pendlay bars, they're great. Yeah. I mean, really no complaints. There was no real reason I need to change, but
Eleiko's the best though, right?
And it was an investment and something I expect to have for the next 10 to 15 years, and I'm fine with it.
Is it as addictive as we see people in CrossFit as far as the number of pairs of shoes? I know you have a certain pair of knee wraps for front squats and a certain pair of knee wraps for snatch, and I'm like, is that
oh, that's just me being me.
But you don't change your shoes. I saw you got given a new pair of shoes and you just threw them away.
That was a bit disrespectful.
I had to try a pair of Nikes, and they were terrible. And it was simply for the fact that day I was bored and I thought I'd try something new.
Right.
But no, I mean the shoes, those will never change over the next bunch of years.
You just wear Adidas lifters.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. And you've had them forever.
I had them for, about 3-4 years now.
Yeah.
Would you ever do things without the lifting shoes on, or would you always just wear lifting shoes?
Man, I'll coach in my lifting shoes.
You just love wearing them.
I'll clean, or I'll do whatever CrossFit workout on my lifting shoes just because I love them so much. Yeah,
really,
yeah.
Just so comfortable.
Yeah.
And how essential is the wire brush that you pulled out one day to clean the chalk off your barbell?
Well, in all honesty, with CrossFitters, and when they get sweaty and then they cake that bar with chalk, you can actually feel that knurling.
Yeah.
It kind of loses some of its grip. And if you're only doing a couple lifts, you don't need your bar to be super dry.
Yeah.
Your hands should be dry already, so it does help.
Well, maybe when you're free next week, you could come and give our bars a little buff up. Do you think that was a question that actually I was going to use for our podcast, but I want to ask it right now. Do you think in CrossFit generally people use way too much chalk for lifting or for pull-ups, toe to bar?
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
For the most part. If you jump on a bar without chalk and your hands are totally dry, you're going to be fine.
Right.
Chalk really is just meant to keep your hands dry.
Right.
So if you have a cake you ice that chalk on your hands and you got a thick layer, it's going to actually just put a layer between you and the bar, and I think it's detrimental.
I think a lot of time it's just an excuse for people to rest, isn't it?
Totally.
I was teaching a class this morning, and it was gymnastics class, and they were doing 100 toes to bar, and I told them, listen, just break them up, do 5s, do 6s, do 8s, do 3s, whatever you want. Literally every time they got off the bar,
they chucked it.
And it actually creates so much friction on your hand.
It creates a lot of friction.
Your hand will just rip.
And I was thinking back to, we've done a lot of workouts recently with a high volume of toe to bar in it. I put chalk on my hand, exactly what you just said there, when I was tired and I needed to rest. Yeah. And it was almost like an excuse. And maybe of 150 toes to bar, it chalked up twice.
I think people, they'll be on the bar and their grip will be starting to fail, and they think, it's because they don't have enough chalk on. When you really just get more grip.
Let's go back to the CrossFit population. As I said, we've got a lot of those listening. What would be the top sort of 3 pieces of advice that you would give to a CrossFitter when it comes to the snatch and the clean and jerk, the weightlifting movements?
I think, first of all, squat power is key. I mean, if you can't front squat 150 kilos or 130 kilos or 100 kilos, how do you expect to clean it? You can't stand up with that clean. So squat power is obviously very important.
Yep.
And then I also think working between and being good at both a power and a squat version of each movement. I think you need to be able to do a power snatch and catch it where you can still drop into a squat, and you need to be able to do a squat snatch when you have to do a squat snatch.
I think that's probably quite a big one that people, especially in CrossFit, there's that point of they can power snatch and power clean way more than they can squat snatch and squat clean for quite a long time.
Yes.
Until they realize that, I actually need to be able to squat, because squat versions should always be heavier than power versions, right?
Absolutely. Well, absolutely. And, once you do have that squat up, eventually your ceiling for a squat clean is far, far higher than a power clean.
Yeah.
So I think you need to work both of those things constantly and be good at both of them. And then the third one, find someone who's technically sound the lifts and work with them. Even though, you may not be weightlifting all the time, just understanding how to jerk properly is going to help out your push press and your push jerk and being able to cycle through the barbell and that sort of thing.
That actually leads into a question I meant to ask you earlier. How do you personally work sort of on your technique? You said you video it a lot, but do you expose yourself to a lot of content? Do you watch a lot of weightlifting to see how people that are better are doing it? And how does that, because as we said, your coach is not here, he's in the States, so how do you work on that to get your technique better?
Yeah, I mean, videos when I can. One of my favorite YouTube channels, which I admittedly spend a lot of time on, is both All Things Gym and Hook Grip.
Right.
Where, they'll just have a 30-minute video of the training hall at the World Championships.
Right.
And you see the way guys warm up and things they do, and, you look and when they're snatching the barbell or 40 kilos or 60 kilos, it's the same as 140 kilos.
Right.
That's and especially on All Things Gym, they're really good for the warm-up videos.
Right.
I learned quite a lot of them. Just of the warm-ups is really good.
Yeah.
Like how they just move with an empty barbell or 40 kilos, because that's something that a lot of CrossFitters, they don't put, and this is especially true of you when you used to do CrossFit, and I just think you used to be really, really inconsistent when we were lifting.
Yep.
And you would do an empty barbell. Okay, 5 reps of snatch, 60 kilos. I'll do a rep. Maybe I missed it. doesn't matter. I'll go up anyway. 80 kilos, 100 kilos,
Yeah.
and then I'll miss 110 a couple of times, hit it once, and be happy and move on. People just don't spend the time like really working and warm up and
No, and the warm-ups become important, and my coach, he'll put in certain warm-up lifts he wants, which is good because then I build up correctly.
And you're consistently now you had that born by day that you talked about, but on a general, like whenever you train here or whenever I watch you train, like I very, very rarely see you miss.
Yeah,
like,
and especially
up to 95%.
Well, yeah, under 90% misses they don't happen very often. So
because I remember asking you one time, I was like, "What do you do?" You were clean and jerking 140 kilos, I think, and I said, "What do you do when you miss?" Because it was on the board. I was like, "What do you do?" And you just went, "Oh, you just don't miss."
Yeah,
so I think it was just quite a good. It was a really good answer, to be honest.
Talking about missing though, mate, like you said, you missed eight out of 8 that day. What's your advice to people about missing, and how to recover from it? Should they be dropping down the weight? Like,
it depends on a lot of things, like who you are and what percentages, and and how you miss.
Right.
Because when I missed my first 2 or 3 behind me.
Right.
So it's not like I wasn't pulling high enough or I wasn't getting under the bar.
Yeah.
And I said, like, it's there, and I just need to get my shit together and hit it.
Right.
And, it took a lot longer than I expected to. But, if I was missing, I didn't have any power and I wasn't pulling the bar high enough, then I'd say, okay, let's get out of here and just move on.
Right.
But, no, I kept saying this.
Right. Technical.
I kept saying to myself, it's there.
Yeah.
Let's hit it. So...
But do you think for like a CrossFit,
for
someone doing CrossFit, especially just like a member of your classes, if they were missing lift over and over, it would definitely be beneficial to like not tell them, or just keep going.
And like as a coach, I mean, you can generally see if they're missing for a ridiculous reason, like they're just not getting their elbows around, or they're, or if they don't have it that day. Then you say, okay, well, take the bar off and let's, hit this for another 5 singles and you're done. Or you just try to correct them and actually make them hit it. So,
but how do you do it? If you for example you need to lift, you've got 4 lifts to do at a certain weight, and you miss the first 2, and then you hit the second 2. Do you keep on going until you've had 4 successful lifts, or should we be saying, right, you're going to work up and you're going to have 3 attempts if you hit it the first? Like, how should it be for people in CrossFit?
It really depends on the program, the coach, the number of reps.
Why are you sitting on the fence? Give people an answer.
I think.
Come on.
I
think
think.
Going to quote you.
No. I'm just saying. It really depends on the athlete. If it is 10 reps and you miss 6 of them, you're not going to reattempt 6 more reps because that's a whole lot of effort, time,
right,
and it's just going to wear down your body.
Right. Like I said, if you were missing for a reason that that they're just not strong enough, you would say, okay, we're going to be snatching again next week. You're not going to go. You're going to take 5 kilos off. That it's probably way too heavy for you. But if you know that this person can hit those lifts and they were just missing for stupid reasons, maybe they only slept for 5 hours and they're just tired or something, then you say, okay, next week come back, get your shit together and do it properly.
Totally.
John, aside from weightlifting, I know another one of your great passions is coffee.
Love it.
You make your own cold brew, or have been known to, and distribute that in various ways around the country. Now, I had a question this morning, which was, I was asked to answer it on the Coaches podcast, but I think you're the best person to answer this question. The question was about grinding coffee.
Very important. Go on.
Very important. You can't just put the beans in. Now, someone asked me where they can, and this isn't the question, well, you might answer this one as well, where they can buy a hand grinder. Now, I turned around and I said, why would you want a hand grinder? Why don't you just get an electronic grinder? And to which she said, well, I thought the hand grinder is better. So, first off, hand grind or electronic grinder?
Hand grind. Hand grind. The thing is, generally, the grinder you guys have here is a little blade grinder.
Right.
Gets the job done, but it's going to do a very inconsistent grind, right? Because you leave it if you press it down for a minute, it's going to grind it very fine.
Right.
It might not get all the beans ground the same way.
Right.
A burr grinder, on the other hand, is where the beans drop down through it, it grinds through, and it comes out consistently at the same thing.
Right.
to buy a hand burr grinder, you're looking at dirhams, maybe 200 dirhams.
Right.
Where to buy an electric burr grinder, you're probably looking at more like 800 to 1200.
So to get that consistency.
Yes.
Whereas the one that we've got here is probably 100 or 120.
Exactly. So it's the same price as
topic.
as a hand grinder. So,
Boz is very interested in this
yeah,
topic.
Boz just popped up there.
Where's Mia gone when we start? She's supposed to be the coffee for the next month.
Right, continue.
So,
this is more interesting.
The reason I don't have an electric burr grinder is just because they're so expensive.
Right.
And also my hand grinder I can kind of take with me where I'm going. So
you have one of these hand grinders that grinds all the coffee exactly the same consistency. Do you find that that's physically demanding? Because that was the next question. She's like, do I want to stand there going like this? I was like, I don't know.
That's actually one of the worst parts about it is it's, 5 in the morning and I'm about to go to work and I'm sitting there, I have to spend 2 minutes grinding my coffee. But I think quality is very important.
So the second part of the question, you've answered that part very well, mate. The second part of the question, I have a feeling I might know the answer, is once you've ground the coffee, how long does the coffee stay fresh or fresh-ish before? Because she then went on to say, well, why don't I just get the roastery to grind it?
As far as I understand, your best bet is within something like 20 minutes.
Wow.
But,
That's why they all look at me funny when I go to Raw and I ask them to ground 3 bags.
With, you generally, I think within a day after that, it's going to lose.
Right.
Because inside each bean, there's oil, and once it's ground, that oil comes out.
Yep.
And if you wait too long, that oil is going to dry up and it's gone, and you're missing some of the good part of the coffee.
So we should be grinding it. If we've got enough money with one of these fancy grinders, if not by hand, and grind it before we use it.
Then again, if you use the grinder you have, it's not like it's going to make bad coffee.
Right.
It just, maybe if you're doing espresso or something a little bit fancier, it might make a difference. With French press, I think you're pretty safe.
Pretty safe.
As long as you don't mind the
So wise.
the little bit of sludge in the bottom.
I think Phil's more impressed with your coffee knowledge than he was about the whole 40 minutes we spoke about weightlifting.
The weightlifting sucks.
The weightlifting sucks. Mate, before we go, I know you're well, in my eyes and the training that we've done together, you've often come up with some quite inspirational quotes and points of wisdom. There's a lot of people having listened, thinking about weightlifting, thinking about CrossFit. You've been teaching physical fitness, shall we say, for a long time now. What's your advice generally to people? What's the best sort of words of wisdom you could dish out?
Well, smooth is fast, fast is smooth. We always got to remember that.
Right.
Is this coffee or?
It's just on everything.
It applies to a lot of places in life. And the other thing you got to remember is every time you miss a lift under 90%, a fucking puppy dies. That's what I have written at the top of my board, just to really remind myself not to miss those lifts, because you shouldn't. Other than that, I don't know. What I keep telling my 16-year-old athlete is Rome wasn't built in a day.
Yeah.
She wants to, if she had her way, she would do 3 hours of snatching every day, where I said, hey, okay, you've done your snatches. Let's relax and move on.
Yeah.
So, take your time and enjoy the process.
Very
is
good.
What I say.
Mate, how can people connect with you? I know you love social media. Instagram,
John.
Spell. How do you spell it? Jon?
It's Jahan, right?
Jahan.
JOHN. Boy. BOYWL.
Standing for?
I've dropped the CF and now it's got a WL there.
We should have spoken about that.
It's
more.
really just a bunch of weightlifting videos, but I do put some tips up there and things to help out people.
And I know you're quite active in Snapchat.
I've just recently rediscovered Snapchat and using it for very vanilla means these days. So,
how do we connect with you on Snapchat?
J Britton, JBritton 10.
Awesome.
Is my Snapchat.
Mate, we look forward to seeing your progress, and hopefully maybe catch up with you again in 6 months on the show. Obviously, we welcome you to InnerFight anytime. We used to have you here a lot, and we enjoyed watching you get very strong and training. And, of course, if wall balls do come up in the open, I'd like to invite you to come and do that workout with me. Would you like to accept that invite?
I'll be here.
Folks, John Britton, a really cool story there from CrossFit to weightlifting. Johnny, Phil, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Cheers.